And
Let's
Dale
talk
Jr.
some E3.
Yes. The Electronic Entertainment Expo 2008.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When everyone was talking about E3, did you think that it was going to die? Because I can tell you that a lot of us in the field of covering, game criticism field, thought we were going to E3 for the wake. We thought this was going to be the end of it. We thought we were going down there to say goodbye to an old friend, and who knows what would take its place. And a very funny thing happened while we were down there. The show went well, and publishers enjoyed it, and there's still some things to work out. It definitely needs some of the pageantry back. And it still had that opportunity to get out in front of mass media, and that really works for the games business. And lo and behold, I think it's going to be back. I don't think it's the end.
No,
I don't think it's the end.
I really truly believed it needed to be reworked though, because it was turning into, if it's a press event for press to come and analyze new products and be shown things, some under NDA, some not. And for us to report on that, it was becoming overwhelmed with just public attendance to the point where it was impossible to really effectively work in that environment anymore. So if they had to hit the big reset button and shake things up a little bit, I'm glad they did that, because I think it's a valuable show. It is, and I like PC gaming, I like console gaming too. So, but let me give you the quick snapshot of why it really
works. So I've talked to several people about this in the publishing business, and the reason it works is, look, the enthusiast sites, we definitely are tapped in it, and the timing probably needs to move back forward a little bit to have this really work, back into like the May time frame. But it works for two reasons. We're going to see the stuff. The enthusiast sites. Where this comes in very handy is that mainstream, USA Today, I even saw someone there from Popular Mechanics covering video games. And this is a unique opportunity because the publishers are not going to bring someone from Popular Mechanics out on every, studio tour to see new games. But they can have those people come out to LA and see several games and get that big reporting, right? The other side is the fan site. And fan sites are huge in in video game business, just like they are in many media-driven stuff. Think where movies are with how that's built up as well. And it's the same story. Those guys can come out to LA and they can see all these games and really get that grassroots community involvement, which is the people who are going to play the game. It's exciting. Woohoo! That's where I started. I think most guys in the video game criticism business got their start at a fan site at one point in time. So it's great to still have E3. I hope they get it right. We got some games. I came out of the Quake 1 days. Quake World. Yeah? That was my big... You saw Quake 3's coming to online browser play. I signed up for the beta. I know. I'm awaiting. Sean Elliott's got it. So coming up on a future DLTV, some Quake in your browser. In a browser. Okay. All right, so they did press conferences. Let's start off with some Wii, because Wii is super popular stuff, right? And I think what's interesting about Wii is they took a tremendous amount of flack from their press conference for not seeming to address the hardcore. It's here's some games. It's all very casual. I'm not really sure where that backlash came from. Well, I know where the backlash came from, but I don't know what people are expecting, because have they watched what Wii has been up to for the past 2 years? This is very much a mainstream box. And yes, they're going to come back and do Zelda. Of course, they're going to do Zelda. They're going to do Mario. They're going to do all those franchises. But when you're talking to that bigger audience, this was the ideal place for them to show stuff like Wii Music. So I think we have a little video of Wii Music. Wii Music was very interesting. It's a pantomime game, really, is what it comes down to. Miyamoto came out and he has the Wiimote in his hands, and he's gesturing like he's playing a saxophone, and up on the screen, you see him essentially, his digital representation of this me playing a saxophone. Then they brought a whole band out, or a whole band. I use that term loosely. They brought some of the Treehouse guys out, and they played like a band. And here's what makes me a little skeptical of this. It looks like fun, right? And the idea, so this is the drum kit you're seeing right here. The drum kit was the antithesis of the other instruments. The drum kit was super serious. It had different foot pedals that you'd hit on the Wii balance board, an entire kit of drums in front of you that you hit with the Wiimotes. So that was pretty neat. But then they started playing, and even the guys who had been practicing, working with the build, it sounded like a cacophony. It was a train wreck. And the funny thing is, the music has to be all pre-sequenced, right? Because what you're doing with the game is pushing buttons to change, to in effect call the sequence out. So there's a pattern of music, and some of those notes are going to play regardless while you're gesturing, and then by pressing buttons, you're adding like accent notes to it. So exactly. You feel like an interactive part of the music. But if you're not very musically inclined and you start adding music into the composition, even if the computer is trying to make it sound good, it still winds up a little dire. Aww. So the other big game I think they showed, for me, was Animal Crossing City Folk. And Animal Crossing City Folk is the finally getting it Wii version of Animal Crossing. And of course, everyone wanted this. Everyone's been hot for it, and then they show it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it doesn't have better graphics than the GameCube version." And that's not what this is about. I'm watching this, and admittedly, the movie was just a few weeks ago, so it was on my brain, and I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, this is the new Sex and the City. It is.
Wait, quick gist. What is Animal Crossing? What's the general idea of the game itself?
The idea of Animal Crossing is the original Animal Crossing. You dropped into this town. You had this little house, and it was essentially a sort of life simulator with a cartoon character where you were paying off your house to Tom Nook, and you were planting trees and getting fruit. It's very hard. It's
Simish style?
Yeah, Simish style. Describing it and playing it are two wholly different enterprises. When you're playing it, it's very easy to get hooked into. There's all these different themes that you can get to decorate your house, and of course now I'm sounding incredibly crazy, right? Because I'm talking about decorating my house, but it's fun. So you can collect all these things. It was also tied into the calendar. So for instance, on Halloween, you had Halloween themed events.
Awesome.
So there's just it was a very interactive yet fun, cute, and cartoony sort of simming your life sort of thing, which I really, really got hooked into. I mean, I played the game for about 8 months. It also came out on DS, and that was the same game. So this is also going to have internet connectivity. You can be able to play with 3 other people.
Awesome.
The one thing I'm a little skeptical of is they also showed this set-top microphone that's like a group microphone. So have you seen the iToy before?
Yes.
For PS3? So imagine an iToy, but the iToy doesn't have a camera, but it picks up everything people are talking about in the room. So you can have they envision that you would sit down with your friends and play Animal Crossing, and somewhere else, your other friends would sit down, and you'd all kind of have this communal experience. I'm a little concerned about what's going to actually go on in those chats. I mean, it's Nintendo.
You invite your friends with your Wii codes on your Wii, so, if you
That's
invite
true.
those people, you take your chances. You know your friends, have fun.
For sure.
Or whatever.
Let's shift gears over to some PS3 stuff. And folks, the one I'm going to show you right now, this was my game of the show, and it like Spore, is a game we've been seeing for a long time. And I'm speaking about Little Big Planet. And I think that this game could truly, absolutely revolutionize the way you sit down and think in front of games. This is a game, so the top level view is, it's a game where you can create adventure games in a toolkit, which doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of how incredibly creative building levels is, and then how rewarding it is to have built something and jump in and play it. And you think, oh, I'd never be able to build a game. This toolkit that they've come up with is so intuitive. It's so easy to use. Literally within a couple minutes of playing with it, you're going to have all these ideas shooting out of your head, and the biggest challenge will be, okay, I actually need to focus and make something. Because if you've ever done anything like a creative endeavor, especially, you get rolling and you have all brainstorming, you got all these ideas. You really do have to, at some point in time, gel them into something and say, okay, I'm actually going to make this. And that's going to be the key with Little Big Planet. And, they kicked off the press conference for Sony by showing the numbers, which has always been a PowerPoint, but we've always had this joke in the business about, we're going to Sony's PowerPoint presentation where they're going to show us the Power PlayStation and all their great numbers. So they did the numbers this time as a level in Little Big Planet. If you haven't seen the video, you should look for it. We have it on GameVideos.com. It is fantastic. They could put PowerPoint out of business with this thing. He's got a little character. He's jumping through the levels. He's pulling down shades that have numbers on them. He's blowing up boxes that have, facts and charts and figures in them. It's fantastic stuff. Really, really, really good stuff.
Very cool.
So, and then Sony will never be accused of not reaching their hardcore fans. They also showed Resistance 2. They had Ted Price up on stage playing this very Cloverfield-looking level. I am telling you, I am so, in the shooter world, I am so psyched for this game. The first game was a PS3 launch title, and it had kind of a mixed reaction. I gave it a very strong review. I really enjoyed it, but there were some people who were a little skeptical of it.
It was really one of the first super titles that came out for the PS3.
If not the first, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was definitely one of their, as they call them, tentpole releases.
It's too, you could say, upping the immersiveness of the environment, graphic quality, and play. Is that really the gist of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's absolutely it. But let's talk about some of the ways that are really exciting with what they're doing. First of all, the single-player campaign comes to America, and, of course, you have the context of America already having been invaded by the Chimera, and Chicago's fallen, so you've got, this very intense sort of American defense drama thing going on, which is fantastic. There's, along with the single-player campaign, there's an entire co-op multiplayer campaign that you can play with your friends. Now, that, to me, is really, really cool.
Rare, isn't it? To
really
see co-op.
Yeah,
in modern games.
And besides co-op, not just a co-op version of the same single-player campaign, but a whole other part of the story that you play with your friends that tells, helps build the story. And then the other part of online is, of course, their huge 60-player multiplayer. And I think I've played this, and I think they have it figured out. 60-player multiplayer, to me, starts to get up in that realm where it's chaotic and it's starting to fall apart, and you're wondering, why am I playing with 60 guys? It's just sort of a mess.
It's a blender.
Right, and as compared to the very intimate sort of Counter-Strike experience, right? They break it down into squads, and every squad is being dynamically assigned different tasks and duties within the game. So these maps, first of all, this only works because the size of the map that they have in their multiplayer is huge. I mean, absolutely ginormous. And so you've got different pockets where people are playing, right? And then, so you've got one squad here that's doing something and one squad here that's doing something. And over the course of the game, they can choose to bring those squads together and have a little bit larger fight. They can pull them off. Maybe one comes over here and knocks out power at a power plant so another team can infiltrate a base. They have this dynamic of play going on. And then one thing that I thought was really cool is they said that they will, every so often, bring all the squads together like for a giant battle royale for about, a minute or two. And then, again, once that's gone on and one team has kind of gotten the upper hand, some of those squads will peel off and get new assignments. I think it's really cool.
Awesome.
Really, really cool.
I want to see some Xbox 360 stuff. What was going on there?
Gears of War 2, of course. Cliff finally brought out Gears of War 2. I've been a little skeptical of Gears of War 2. So, and interesting, the B-roll that we have here, which is the video we're watching, this is actually the level they showed about 2 months ago, and it was the one that left me a little skeptical. It was very scripted. It was pretty, but I just wasn't getting that Gears of War 2 feel from it. Flash forward to this, which is the new, well, that's actually still in the dirt. Flash forward to the demo that we have up on Game Videos that they did at E3 this year, and it was in prime form. I think they've gotten so much better at their level design. The idea behind, if you haven't ever seen Cliff talk about it, the idea behind Gears of War was this pop and shoot thing. He actually had this idea that instead of a platformer where you're moving up, and jumping from level to level like you would in Mario, that you take that whole thing and lay it down, and then you're moving from cover to cover in sort of the same sort of way. And they were very rigid about that in the first game because they were just starting to experiment with it. The level that they showed at E3 was fantastic because it had multiple layers of 3 dimensions. So you were moving up and down ramps. You had cover, but the cover had with it also tactical positions. And then you really, really well integrated dramatic moments like a collapsing elevator, which was smoothly in and out. It was very, very well done. Liked that a lot. And the other game that caught me, again, another surprise, Fable 2. Okay, I had to go and apologize to Peter, and he was Peter Molyneux, who's the head of Lionhead, and he was very gracious about accepting my apology because I've been saying, it's not going to make it this year, and he was like, oh yes, it's going to make it. And I was like, I don't know, they're always behind. It's done. It's basically done, and seeing it all together with the final visual passes in it and all of the systems for character interaction and actually being part of the world in there made a believer of me. And the part that I think a lot of people haven't paid enough attention to is the multiplayer system, and it's really, really cool. So you're playing, let's say you and I are on a friends list, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm playing Fable 2, you're playing Fable 2, and in my game, I see a little orb that represents where you are in your game playing your game. I click on the orb and I say, hey, Rob, you want to come play with me? You pop right there into my world, and we just keep playing in my world. Nice. And what's cool about this is that everybody's world is going to be unique because there's so many things that can change in each town, in each, every part of the environment based on what you do. Did you kill Mrs. Baker? Did you marry Mrs. Baker? Did you ignore Mrs. Baker and you have no idea what she's doing in the first place? So you'll come into my cities and there'll be one way. I'll go into yours and there'll be another way. And don't forget, there's also a lock. It's very important to have a lock. Whoever does the inviting has control over the lock. I'd say leave it on because, as Peter pointed out in an example, if you don't have the lock on, the other person can actually kill important people in your world. For instance, they could come in and kill your wife.
Well,
a little strange.
Just wipe out a little bit of genocide, or I don't know. That's the risks you run if you don't lock your title down. So
when you invite people, make sure and keep the lock on unless you really know them well, or you just want to, or maybe you just want to see what kind of chaos happens. I think it could be fun. I think you can have fun with it, but don't let it ruin your game if you're going to have fun with it. So we got a couple of multi-platform titles I want to get in here real quickly. Also, Fallout 3. If Little Big Planet hadn't been my game of the show, Fallout 3 would have been it. I mean, it's Maybe it's a case of absence making the heart grow fonder. I'm not really sure. Fallout 1 and 2 were very different games from this. You know, they have a great following of fans. Many of them have been upset with Bethesda's direction for this because, as you can see, they're using the Oblivion engine, and they've made it into that sort of first-person, a little bit of action orientation role-playing game. Mm-hmm. But they've nailed it. I mean, they've absolutely nailed it. The character, like what you're saying there is a post-apocalyptic Washington, D.C. It has very much the flavor of the old Fallouts. But the VAT system, which allows you to hop in and stop time and do, you know, precise shots where it's rolling all the dice in the background and calculating all the percentages and using all your skills is there. But to keep the game flowing, when you don't want to use those or when you've actually worn down an enemy, you just play it like a shooter. So you just boom, 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 shoot, move through stuff. I found the balance of the play to be excellent.
Excellent.
And finally,
last one.
Resident Evil 5, it was on display at Microsoft's press conference. And one of the things that they had it there for was this was the first time they showed off co-op play in the single-player game. So what's big here is that there's two characters, and they're going to be able to cooperate. And I think the level that they chose to show this in was perfect for illustrating how, you know, you could support one another. So let's say one of you is this is the level they're showing here is this hotel, and one of the characters is across the street as a sniper trying to protect the other by keeping the I'm going to call them zombies, but I guess they're not really zombies. We don't know exactly what they are yet. Trying to keep the zombies off of her. So it has that dynamic back and forth play. The game looks gorgeous. The only skepticism I have at the moment is on the control scheme. It still has that stop in place and pull up the gun thing, and I realize that that's integral to like why Resident Evil works, because that's part of the scare, right? Is every time you're gonna shoot, you stop. So you're kind of rooted in place, and you have to really, you know, maneuver and keep in mind your setting. But I don't know if it wouldn't benefit from being able to move, because we've kind of moved to that part in third-person adventure games where, you know, we're accustomed to moving and shooting, and, you know, maybe there could be some penalties for aiming. I'm off on a tangent now, but, you know, I'm not sure about that part. You know, I mean, what's your take? Do you play Resident Evils?
No, not at all. So, I like any good game that can give me a little fright and get me immersed into the environment. But
this will do that.
I pick and choose my titles carefully because time is just so limited.
No argument with that.
Right now, it just seems like both on the console and the PC side of things, there are just too many darn good games out right now, and more coming down the pipe.
Absolutely.
Can they get all the info about everything we just talked about on the 1UP website?
They sure can. 1UP.com, and then also on Game Videos. And we've also got a couple of great videos of the Guitar Hero World Tour and Rock Band 2 up there. That's going to be the big music game shootout again, Battle of the Bands, so to say, or whatever, for this fall.
Good deal.
So there you go.